Genetics is a controversial topic in the bodybuilding and fitness space. Some people believe they have bad genetics for building muscle and are quick to label someone with an impressive physique as having good genetics. But how do we define good or bad genetics? And how much does it affect a lifter's starting physique and how they progress from weight training? In this video, we'll discuss practical ways to assess if you have good or bad genetics. First, let's be clear that the scientific community doesn't fully understand human genetics. How specific genes influence muscle and strength gains from resistance training is a topic of ongoing research. There currently isn't enough data for us to draw hard conclusions. The points in this video will familiarize you with how lifters respond to weight training and how genetics play a role. By the end of this video, you'll have a good idea of whether or not you have good or not so good genetics for muscle building. As a heads up, you should be wary of anyone making detailed claims like it's 40% genetics and 60% effort in a field that has more questions than answers. Let's start by defining a couple of terms. In the muscle building world, good genetics typically refers to someone who can gain muscle and strength relatively fast and has a high genetic ceiling. A genetic ceiling refers to a point where people tend to hit their plateaus and need to work exponentially more to see further progress. Someone with lousy genetics trains hard but struggles to gain muscle and strength. A person who has poor genetics also tends to plateau sooner than someone with good genetics. Ultimately, what we are referring to with these definitions is individual variability related to resistance training outcomes. In 2005, a 12-week study assessed the variability in muscle bicep size and strength changes in 585 subjects. The subjects in this study comprised 342 women and 243 men. They assessed isometric strength and dynamic 1-rep max strength in the arm curl in the cross-sectional area of the bicep brachii. Of the 585 subjects, 232 subjects showed an increase in the cross-sectional area between 15 and 25%. Since most participants fell in this range, we can consider this the normal range for growth from pre to post training. Out of these subjects, 10 subjects gained over 40%, while 36 subjects gained less than 5%. These are the outliers because they fall outside the normal range. The 10 subjects that gained over 40% are the ones we can say have tremendous or even elite bicep building genetics. They're the ones who build muscle fast and probably get hit with the steroid accusations even when they're natural. The subjects that gained less than 5%, well, they're the ones with crappy genetics and need to look at other methods to build their biceps. Now that we know how widely individuals vary in their response to training, let's get into assessing your genetics and how it can affect your starting point and gains from lifting. Number 1. Inherited genetics. One way to gauge if you have good or bad genetics, at least a baseline, is to look at your parents. How much lean mass to fat mass do they carry? How are their bone structure and density? All these factors are inherited and play a role in your physique. This 1999 study investigated the influence of heredity and environment on bone density in young men. This study aimed to discover whether the same genetic factors influenced bone mass, lean mass and muscle mass. 50 families, including a father, mother and one son, were investigated. Bone mineral density of the total body, head, lumbar, spine and femoral neck was measured using dual-energy X-ray absorbed geometry. Muscle strength of the hamstrings and quadricep muscles were also measured in the boys. Heritability explained 34 to 50% of the variation in the son's bone mineral density. Parent bone mass density of several sites also predicted the boy's lean mass and quadricep strength. So we see that even at a young age, we inherit physical characteristics that play a substantial role in our baseline muscle and strength. Now, this doesn't mean that you're doomed if neither of your parents is a pro-level bodybuilder. It means the likelihood of you having great muscle building genetics isn't as high as someone whose parents naturally have denser bones and more muscle tissue. So the next time you notice your calves aren't growing after months of training them, catch a glimpse of your parents' calves. Chances are the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Number 2. Look at your upbringing. Now that we've looked at nature, which included your inherited genetics, let's move on to nurture, which involves your upbringing and environment. Children who participate in athletic activity and have some form of resistance training while going through puberty have more significant muscle building potential than those that sat around and played video games. There are several reasons why this is true. The first is that the hormones of a child going through puberty are primed for growth. With resistance training or athletic activity, muscle and strength gains happen faster during this phase. With continued physical activity, these gains carry on into adulthood. Another reason is that children who establish regular exercise habits are more likely to continue them through life. So think back to how physically active you were as a kid. If you were involved in some form of strength training, whether it was bodyweight exercises or weightlifting, chances are you'll have a better ability to gain muscle and strength as an adult. Number 3. Experiment and track. Out of the 5 methods we'll discuss in this video, experimenting with training variables and tracking your progress will be the best method to use for one main reason: it gives you real-life data about yourself. As we saw in the bicep training study, there's a wide range of individual variability to the specific training style used in that study. In addition to that, people respond differently to various types of training. The number of sets performed weekly is a critical variable that should be adjusted as needed. Studies have shown that more sets up to a point produce more significant muscle mass and strength. If you are performing 10 sets per week for a muscle group and not seeing growth, you may start to think you have bad genetics, but this conclusion would be premature. Experiment with additional sets per week and see how your body adapts. There's a good chance you'll find that sweet spot for the sets per week that'll produce the growth you want. Here are 3 training styles that you should experiment with to see what you respond to best. Number 1, low volume, high intensity training. Number 2, moderate volume, moderate intensity training. Number 3, high volume training with varying intensities. To get the most out of your self-study, you must do 2 critical things. One is to stick to each training style long enough to track the effects. We'd suggest sticking to each method for 4 to 6 months before switching, and 2 is to keep a detailed log to see which produced the best results. Track your lifting numbers like weight, reps, sets, rate of perceived exertion on a scale of 1 to 10. Track body measurements, body weight, and progress pictures. If you are patient and calculated, you'll learn which type of training works for you and be able to use that progress for life. Number 4, hormonal profile by getting blood work. Getting blood work done and having a doctor familiar with the bodybuilding world will give you insight into your hormonal profile. There's no doubt that your hormones affect your ability to build muscle. Men with higher amounts of testosterone will have an easier time building muscle. How much testosterone you have is impacted by both your genetics and your lifestyle. Check out our video on ways to increase your testosterone levels on the Muscle Monster YouTube channel. If you naturally have higher total and free testosterone levels, rest assured your genetics are doing you a muscle building favor from a hormonal perspective. On the other hand, if you discover your testosterone levels are lower than expected, talk to your doctor about ways to medically increase your testosterone to the ideal range. Number 5, gene testing. By now you may have heard about genetic test kits you can order online. These tests often test a single or small handful of muscle and strength genes and give you answers based on that. The problem is, most of what we care about are largely polygenetic, meaning many genes play a role in how we express muscle and strength in training. Having a couple of genes tested doesn't tell us much. In short, please don't waste your money on these test kits and focus on the other strategies we discussed in this video. The last thing you need is a test wrongly telling you you have bad genetics and affecting your enthusiasm. To train, this plays an even bigger role in getting results. Have you ever heard of the saying your thoughts become a reality? Research reveals that people start to act by what they believe is true. If a doctor tells you or you think that you have poor genetics, your efforts and results will suffer even if you don't. So unless you have concrete evidence that you have poor genetics, stay positive and train with positive thoughts. The only way to truly discover your full genetic potential is to train hard for years with the core belief that you have good genetics. Only then will you find out if you have good or bad genetics, because you will have fulfilled your genetic potential. If you found this video helpful, make sure you give this video a thumbs up as it would truly help out the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more videos and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next one.